So this week we're looking at producers, consumers, and decomposers and what those are in an ecosystem. So producers are also known as autotrophs. They're just synonyms. A common producer that you should just be able to kind of recognize are phytoplankton. And basically that's a plant in water, as you can kind of see. They're green colored here. And so they're basically a plant that allows the same photosynthetic things to occur underwater. And it's a very common one. Over here, of course, we have just a regular plant, and it takes in carbon dioxide, water, minerals, and it's going to make food and release oxygen. So producers are organisms that can make their own food from the sun through photosynthesis, and that's what we learned about in an earlier unit. Consumers are also known as heterotrophs. Now, these are organisms that cannot produce their own food and must eat to get energy. And so, of course, animals would work here for that. Insects, anything that has to eat for energy, any non-autotroph or non-plant would be a consumer, or in other words, a heterotroph. And these words are used interchangeably. Sometimes you'll see heterotrophs, sometimes you'll see consumers. They're really exactly the same thing. Herbivores are what are known as primary consumers. And again, they basically mean the same thing. Primary consumers are herbivores. The reason why they're primary consumers, they're the first consumers. So they eat only producers. They do not eat other animals or other insects. They eat autotrophs or plants, in other words, and that's all that they eat. They're considered herbivores or primary consumers because they only eat plants. Carnivore then would not be a primary consumer because carnivores are going to eat only consumers. So they are not considered primary consumers. Okay, so these would be, we'll get to later, what are called secondary consumers. They're second up. So primary consumers would be things that obviously are going to be our predators, and they do not have to be just those. They could be smaller things like this zooplankton. Omnivores would be like a bear, which as you can see here, they eat not only consumers, but they can eat plants for energy too. Insects like this ant do the same thing. So they can eat plants for energy, but they can also eat other insects for energy too. So they can eat both plants and animals, and they really do need them for energy and for survival. And then decomposers would be things like worms, mushrooms, insects, bacteria. And they are very important because they are the organisms that get their energy by breaking down dead organisms, whether they be the dead leaves that we have here or anything that just dies. Okay, so the insects would come in like our flies, worms, mushrooms, and what they do is they break down those dead organisms, break down the animal waste, because that's their food products. And then at the end, they get this material here, which are the nutrients in the soil, also known as detritus. So that's what gives the soil this kind of dark color. You know it's nutrient rich, and that's because, of course, decomposers have broken down living things into that material. And so that's what kind of allows then this circle to continue. So remember how we talked about the flow of matter and how it's all circular. One thing eats the next and the matter just keeps going around and around and around. Well, it's got to get back into the soil somehow so that the plants can use it and go round and round again. So the decomposers allow that to occur. So earlier in the unit, we talked about how energy and matter are related. So the arrows show where energy and matter flow to in an ecosystem. Okay, so energy is starting, boom, moves up here, started with the sun, grass, energy then went to the grasshopper when the grasshopper ate the grass, went to the frog when the frog ate the grasshopper, the snake when the snake ate the frog, and so on down the line. Okay, matter is also going to be very circular. So the matter will go from the plant to the rabbit, the herbivore. Okay, that matter inside of that rabbit then goes to our fox here, our carnivore. When it eats it, well, eventually this is going to die. The decomposers will break down that matter and put it back into the soil. The plants then take it up through the roots to grow larger. That's the nutrients. Then back around in a circle. That's the flow of matter.